Hi, this is Martinitydk and this is Deconstructing Dreams. Today we're having a look at Martinitydk's still life. This is his PSN name, Martinitydk. He released this still life. It's not remixable, but let's have a look. There's a pot, an apple, a skull. We've got a tiled floor and some wood panels at the back there. You can scope out here and you can have a look. There we are. That's what he's made, and that's his still life. It's in the style of a sort of an old master oil painting. Like I say, this is not remixable. However, he has launched all of these objects as separate elements, so we can have a look and see how he made each individual piece, if not the scene. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at each of these individual sculpts and see how he made them, and then make a scene at the end using them with some lighting effects and things, and see how they can be made into a convincing still life. So the first thing to look at is there's wood panelling at the back. Now he did that quite a while ago, so let's have a look at that one first, if we can find it. It's back here somewhere. There it is. So first thing to note, and I was a bit, I didn't know what this was. It's got these little red sticker things on it, and I'm like, what is that? I don't know. First thing to note though, it's made into two separate pieces, and these are linked by this here. What he's done is he's gone into the tweak menu of this sculpt and the tweak menu of this sculpt and wired up the roughness and the metalness so that they both are exactly the same. That's what he's done. He's wired them up. I've never seen that before. It never occurred to me. I would just note down the numbers that I'd use and just apply the numbers. I suppose this allows him to change one and therefore change the other at the same time. So you want to make it more shiny like that, they both become more shiny. So it's an interesting technique, so you might want to apply that to your own things if you want to link things up together so they have the same shininess and waxiness, etc. There you go. There's a technique that I've not seen used, but there we are. So what he's done here is he's got one sculpt for the back of the panel and one sculpt for the fancy bits. Now the fancy bits are made using the kaleidoscope tool, and if I pull them out you can see, let's turn the kaleidoscope to, can we turn it on? You can see that he's used flattened spheres to make the design here, and he's used the kaleidoscope tool, and this is really effective. If we pull them out, you can see that he's made it in the pink clay first, and then he spray painted it afterwards with the wood effect to get this nice carved wood panel part. This part also used the kaleidoscope tool. So you've got wood bits to make up the frame here. You've got a back panel there. This is all one sculpt, so he's just made this, and then he's painted it afterwards. You've got little rounded cylinders here just to give the edges on that frame. Now this is not the way I normally do frames. I normally take one cube and then cut into it. So because this is rather thermo heavy because you've got lots and lots of pieces. Having said that, what is the thermo? It's really low, so it's nothing to be worried about. So if you want to use this technique, go ahead. It's just a lot of cylinders and rectangles, and you just build it up with the kaleidoscope tool set to 4. Like so. So there we go. That's a very simple what he's done there. I noticed there is some paint effects here as well, just to add a little bit of the scratches and what have you onto the wood panels. all of these little things, all these little extra touches just adds to the realism. So making the basic sculpt is straightforward, and some of the additional parts of it are just the little added touches, the little scratches, the little extras, the little dings, little cuts, just to make something look real. So that's the wood panel. Let's go back over here to our extra new bits. Right, okay, here is the tile. Again, this is using the kaleidoscope tool to paint a design on a block. What he's got here is he's got two blocks, one inside the other, so we've got a raised edge, and he's used the bottom and the top for a different design. Now, this is a really good way of making your props, making them versatile so that they look different at the bottom than they do at the top, so that you don't have to make two different objects. You can make one, and that's what that is doing. So let's have a go at making one of these. So we'll go into sculpt mode. I'm going to use white from the outset. Start new sculpture. I'm just going to place down my cube, and then I'm going to place another cube slightly smaller inside. That gives me my raised tile. Then I'm going to take the spray paint, a nice dark colour, and I'm going to use the kaleidoscope. He seems to have a five-sided shape there, so you can create all sorts of shapes. So we can elongate our sphere like this. Put the surface snap on. See if we can get different shapes. And what you do is you just paint your design onto your tile. You can change the amount of kaleidoscopes you've got, so you can do different designs. I haven't done that very well, but you get the idea. This is how you make your tile. You would spend some time doing a very nice design. So there's our tile. There's our tile design, and you've got it ready made with the edges. If you do go over, you can always take the kaleidoscope off and take a nice big cube. Make sure surface snap is off. Scope in, and like that, and you can change the background of your. After you've done the spraying, you can then change it so that your tile stands out. And then when you tile it like this, you've got that little gap like so. And you can make up your floor with your tiles like that. Take your time to get them all to line up and what have you in the right position, and there we are. You make up your floor like that. So that's a really simple technique to make a tile. It depends on how accomplished you are with the spray paint and making these lovely kaleidoscope patterns. Just practice and you'll get something really nice. Right, here is the pot. Now this uses a technique that I wasn't familiar with, so I'm really pleased that I took this one apart. First thing to note, we have a nice ceramic pot with a gold inside. Now you might be thinking, how's he managed to paint a different texture inside that pot? Well, the simple answer is it's two pots. So once you've made your initial pot, you then clone it. You just make a copy like this. You go into the paint tool here and you can change the colour of it, and then put the metalness completely up like that, There we go. And then we have a metal inside. And then you just make it slightly smaller than the pot that you had before, and then place it inside your pot, and there you go. You've got yourself a metal inside to your pot. Really simple. And if you wanted to do just an edge, say you wanted to do a metal rim or something, make it slightly bigger than your pot, then go into sculpt, use the colour picker to pick the colour of your pot, scope in, make it nice and big, and then basically, I'm going to make it big enough, right, there we are, basically cut. And there you have, didn't have that quite centered, but you can see the technique. There we go. There's our ring, and that just sits on the top of our pot. So it's really simple to do these sort of techniques. Just duplicate, make an extra object, change the textures of it, and then just add it back on. Really nice, very easy. Right, so how's he sculpted the pot? How's he get these lovely smooth sides? This hasn't been sculpted, it hasn't been sort of cut. It has been made with lots and lots. If I can pull one out. I can't get into it. There we go. There's lots of little bits. That's not what I want. Right. Come on. Trying to select one. There we go. It's made up of lots and lots and lots of spheres. These are actually mirrored spheres. There's two there. Look, they're mirrored spheres with the kaleidoscope tool on, and they make each of the rings of this pot. The best way to show you how this is done is to make my own pot. So let's start a new sculpture. Take a sphere. Okay, so you stamp something down in the center. This is going to act as your center point for your kaleidoscope. Then you want this to go up. This is going to go chunk in a minute. There we go. And I'll put it up to its maximum amount. There you go. So you get a ring. You make sure it's in stamp mode and then put the blend up like so. And now you can see you can make yourself a nice ring. Different thicknesses. And you can build up quite a nice pot. And it does look like you would get with an actual potter's wheel, because when you do it on a potter's wheel, obviously you're getting that turning on the wheel. There we go, we've made ourselves a pot. I'm going to take the center out with a cylinder. There we go, like that. There we go, there's our pot. And that looks really nice. And it's lovely and smooth, and you're not cutting it. Now, he has used some extra techniques. So as you can see, as we pulled it out, there's lots of little specks here to add some extra texture. But the main texture of this is done through the actual texture of whether you use which one of these you are using, which fleck you are using, plus looseness. So if we just up the looseness a bit, there we go. You can see we're getting a texture on that pot. We're getting a nice looseness, and you can change the inner color like this, and that gives you an even more interesting effect, a more flecky effect. You get that just get this like a second color, and that creates a really nice pottery effect. So he's used some extra texture here with some extra little dots and things, but most of the texture is done with the fleck, like so. And we'll just make that more shiny so it looks like ceramic, and there we have our lovely pot. And it's really, really simple technique. Here's his pot. It's not the same shape, so this is not going to work so well, but you can combine pots of different textures and what have you. Get really interesting effects like that to make your pot. There we go. Apples next. Apples actually, the technique for sculpting an apple is really simple. It's the painting that makes it. So let's have a look and see what he's done here. We'll scope in. It's basically a series of blended spheres to make your apple shape, and then he's used a cone to cut the top off. So if we go in, start our new sculpture, let's take a sphere, let's get a nice dark red. So let's change the looseness a bit, so we've got a little bit of texture on that, and we want it in stamp mode and blend. So I'm going to stamp and stamp and stamp until I get a sort of apple shape, and then I'm going to take my cone, blend it, and then I'm going to cut out the top of my apple like that. Yep, I'm happy with that. And then it's all to do with the painting. All the effects on making this look real is in the spray paint. So use plenty of colour. I'm going to use an orange. Get the soft blend right up and the opacity right down. And then I'm just going to put a bit of orange on the top there. And then I'm going to take a little bit of yellow. And then the green, and immediately you can see we're getting the look here of an apple. And then I'm going to put the surface snap on, and I'm just going to just stripe it a bit. Don't forget, apples are natural and they're all different, but you can play about with it. I'm going to put a little bit more red on that apple, I think. Maybe it's just a bit darker red near the bottom. There we go. So there's my apple. I'm going to put the shininess up a bit. There we go. There we are. There's an apple. They're not that difficult to do. Obviously, Martin's is better than mine. He spent a lot more time on that, and he's shaped it a bit more. He's used some cubes there just to get a different effect on it. So what you've done, what he's done there. If I scope into that, if we go to stamp shape, blend amount, you can see you can just cut into this apple. I've done that in the wrong place, haven't I? But that's how you make a peach, for example. You just cut into it like that. Get that peach shape going on. There we are, like that. Turn that apple into a peach. But that's it takes some time. You cut into your apple and get it the shape you want. I'm sort of happy with it as it is, to be honest with you. Don't forget, if you're creating an object, don't just look at it from one angle. An apple would have the core bit at the bottom as well, so you would add that to it to give you more realism and give you more versatility. If we look at Martin's apple, he hasn't bothered because he's not going to do that. But I would recommend do the whole of it, so the bit at the bottom as well, and then you could, when you put your apples in your scene, you can have them at different angles and it'll all look right. So there we are, there's our apple. Right, so let's have a look at the last one. This is the skull. This uses a technique very similar to the one he used on the pot. You can see that he's got lots of texture on here that looks like dust or dirt in the skull. This adds to the realism, but all it is just a copy of the skull with a different texture. So you just copy it, change the texture on it with the sliders. So this has got 100% roughness like this. Change the colour a bit, and then you can overlay it in different positions to get different effects. So you can make it a little bit. You can make it a bit bigger than the skull, so that you can have the shiny bits on it are like that, so it's been polished in different places. Or you can make it a little bit smaller so that it's just on the inside, so it's just dusty on the inside. There's lots of techniques you can use to improve the texture, and this is a really good one and really easy to do. Just layer it just like that, and then immediately it's dirty and dusty in all the right places. It's really good. The skull has been sculpted by somebody who knows what they're doing. So if I was to scope into it, let me just scope into the shiny one. You'll notice he's used the mirror tool to do it, and he's used flattened spheres to do his sculpting. So he's added and added and added, and then you cut and cut and cut. So you use it like clay, just add bits and add bits and add bits, and there is a lot of individual shapes in this skull. Use a reference picture. There's plenty of pictures of skulls and things on Google. A skull's a good one to have a go at. It's not easy to do, but it's really good practice, and it'll help you with doing faces later on as well. So it's a good idea to have a go at a skull. But all I can say to you, there's no real shortcuts to getting a really good sculpt going in Dreams. It is about practice and a little bit of talent and skill, I'm afraid. Martin's a very skilled sculptor, but there's extra techniques that you can use to improve your sculpts, but I can't show you how to actually sculpt and make it this good. It's got to be something that you get good at from practice and training, which Martin obviously, I think he's a graphic designer, he's an artist of some sort. He's obviously had the training, so he knows what he's doing when he's sculpting this type of thing. Right, so let's make a scene, shall we, with all of these lovely objects, and see how realistic we can make it look. So we'll come out of here, and we'll make a new level. Right, so what do we need? We need some tiles. So we'll stamp that down. That'll do. I'm doing this really roughly and really quickly. If you were making the scene, obviously you would take some time to make sure these are all lined up, which this doesn't. But there you are. There's our tiled floor. Right, we want that wooden piece to make our background. Let me just stamp that down. Whoops. Copy. Paste, 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 paste. There we go. And then we're going to need... I'm not going to do the blanket because he hasn't included that as an object. So we'll just go with the objects that he actually provided as elements. There's our pot. That's huge. Shrink that down a bit. And there's our pot. A massive apple. Let's put that in and... There we go, got some apples. And our skull. I think that's the right size for the apple, is it? Yeah, I think so. Okay, so far, not all that great. Let's put some lighting in, and this is where everything suddenly changes. So we're going to put a sun and sky in there. I'm just going to make it black, and we're just going to move this sun around a bit. Where are we going to have the light coming in? I might move it actually. There we go. That'll do to start. All right, then I'm going to put a light in. Spotlight in. Like so. And then I'm going to use another one. Like this, and I'm going to make that blue. Slightly blue. And I'm going to use an image just to get a bit of dappled light. Get lots of interesting effects. I'm going to go with that, I think. Right, where is our main light? Because this is a bit bright. There we go. And we'll make that a white light like that. There we go. And then we'll stick our camera in. And suddenly we have a completely different look entirely. There we are. That's the sort of thing that you would do in order to get a really realistic looking still life together. It's all about the lighting. It's all about the paint effects and the sculpting. Yes, you need to do a nice decent sculpt, but practice will make that. Just practice, practice, practice. Thanks for watching. I hope that was interesting for you. There'll be another Deconstructing Dreams on next Friday. If you've got any suggestions about what you'd like me to take apart or what you'd like me to do, then please let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in your dream.